I cannot stop coughing.
All right, good morning, everyone. We will call the Committee on Appointments to order at 8 a.m. Happy December. We have just simply one item, which is the discussion on the current board and commission vacancy list as of December 2nd. And Ms. Bosker, if you could guide us through that.
Yes, so we don't have any appointments. Just getting towards the end of year, we've been working on filling in gaps there, and then we'll have our end of year appointment list on the agenda next meeting. But I did want to highlight just while we're talking about vacancies, the vacancies that will be open after the end of year terms end and people choosing not to serve again. Just a couple of things to highlight and put on the radar. The Mobile GR commission will have 4 vacancies, and the Planning Commission will have a couple, and Community Relations will have a couple of vacancies, and then Urban Agriculture currently has 4 vacancies, so just mentioning that again.
Thank you.
Yes, and then the other thing, go ahead.
No, go ahead. The terms, yes.
Yes. The other thing that we wanted to mention is that we will be staggering the term end dates for the economic development boards. So we mentioned this, went over it at our work session, and I worked with Patrick on a plan. So those who will be reappointed at the next meeting will have a term end date of June 30 rather than December 31. So they'll be appointed for 4.5 years. And then at the beginning of the year, we'll work on reappointing to adjust all of the other current members. So there'll be a couple of full similar agenda items, reappointing those other CIA, the Brownfield and Economic Development Corporation and Smart Zone members.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Bosker. Colleagues? Yes, Commissioner Isasi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ms. Bosker. My question is on Mobile GR. Are those ward-specific, organization-specific?
They are not.
Okay.
There's the goal, of course, always to have ward representation. They're in their bylaws. They have guidelines for organizations and groups that they would like the members to represent, but it's not clearly defined. It's not.
Could you tell us what the current ward makeup is? I know not everybody on there needs to be a resident, but out of the residents that are on there.
Yes, just a moment.
And then while you're looking at that, thanks for that work on the staggering on the economic development. I think that's good so that we don't have so many at one time. So I appreciate that. I'm guessing on planning that the mayor has some names that he's interested. And then community relations, you said that was 4 as well. And they have a separate, not a separate, I shouldn't say, an additional process where they look at individuals. And so are they going through that process right now?
I don't know. Okay. I would guess so. However, we're getting to the time of year where everybody's not meeting as frequently, so but I'll make sure that their liaison knows.
Is there a new liaison at that one too, Ms.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's the same one. Okay. Sorry, I asked you a bunch of questions as you said you were going to do something, so my apologies.
All right. So currently there are 2 Ward 1 members, 7 Ward 2 members, and 1 Ward 3 member on Mobile GR.
Okay.
We have some people leaving, but there's some obvious areas where we could use for representation ward-wise.
Okay. So but you said that's the current makeup right now, or
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then do you know who's leaving? Where?
Excuse me.
There are a couple of there's also 3 outside the city members. And
okay.
So 2 of the outside the city members are leaving, which is an opportunity to add more city residents.
Okay.
And then there's a Ward 2 member, 2 Ward 2 members.
Okay, so then we're going to balance that out.
We should be able to.
That was quite a bit. So, okay. Thank you so much for that detail.
All right. Anything further, you all? All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Bosker, on your work on that. I'm looking forward to the end of the year appointments, and we will adjourn the Committee on Appointments at 8:04 a.m. Have a good day.
All right, good morning, everybody. Happy December. It's 8:30, so we'll go ahead and call our fiscal committee meeting to order. We've got a few items here, and then pending time, which we should have plenty given this scheduled for an hour today, we have a follow-up briefing that we didn't have time to get to back from our November 13th City Commission workshop. So jumping in here with item number 1, we've got a resolution approving new 3-year contract award for employee assistance program services through Uline Incorporated with administration costs not to exceed $132,480. Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Mike Osman. I'm the Employee Benefits Manager. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. The Human Resources Department recently conducted a request for proposal along with our first responder groups to see if we could find a employee assistance provider. And after the results of the RFP, we concluded that Uline Incorporated was the correct provider for that. They've also been our EAP for the last 3 years, and they do just a really wonderful job. So we'd like to continue that relationship.
Awesome, thanks so much. Any questions, colleagues? One quick question. What's sort of the utilization rate? I know EAPs are an awesome resource for employees. I'm just curious, like how much people
Yeah, so
utilize it.
looking at the 2024 data, we don't have quite all the 2025 one yet. So we had 827 total services utilized during that time and 327 people used. So if you do the math on that for employees, it's about 22% being used.
Awesome.
And we're kind of on track for that right now.
Yeah, that's great. All right, well, hearing and seeing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we've got a resolution approving a 1-year contract extension with Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, our agent of record for property and casualty insurance totaling $58,850.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning, Ms. Eddy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Eddy, Deputy HR Director. I'm requesting approval of a 1-year extension of the Agent of Record agreement with AJ Gallagher Risk Management Services for property and casualty insurance. Our current agreement expires December 31st, and this extension will be a not to exceed amount of $58,850 for the calendar year 2026. This will also allow the HR department the necessary runway to manage current workload demands while preparing a full competitive RFP process in the coming year. This short-term extension maintains the continuation of services while we complete a thorough competitive process in 2026. I am respectfully requesting your approval of this 1-year extension.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Colleagues, any discussion on this one? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Brings us to item number 3. We've got a resolution approving payment to the Kent County Drain Commission, KCDC, for the Saddlebag Drain Assessment Payment in the amount of $28,136.57.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners and colleagues. Dan Tabor, Stormwater Manager, City of Grand Rapids here. This is requesting a payment in the amount of $28,136.57 for a drain assessment from the Kent County Drain Commissioner for Saddleback Drain. This project is completing a pump station and various dredging and stormwater maintenance up on the northeast side of the city. This drainage area encompasses parts of Grand Rapids Township, and Kentwood, and the Drain Commissioner is looking to complete this work this year. So standard stuff, not related to NAP at all, but just work Drain Commissioner's undergoing with.
Got it. Okay, that was going to be my question, is if there was any relation or connection to
Nope,
NAP. So,
different watersheds,
Yep.
so
okay, awesome.
connected.
Any questions, colleagues? All righty, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is a resolution authorizing budget substitution in the amount of $500,000 for the replacement of LMFP switchgear.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. The item that you have in front of you is associated with the lightning strike that we had out at the filtration plant near our generator building back in August. This amount of money will cover the gap that we have. We have some money budgeted capitally for electrical improvements. We do that on an annual basis for our filtration plant. We plan on using about $1 million of that budgeted money towards making these improvements to the generators, and this amount will cover that gap, and it's going to come out of the IIP.
Okay. Any discussion, colleagues? Questions on this one? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Item number 5, we've got a resolution authorizing a budget substitution in the amount of $3,265,506 for the Stevens Steel to Randolph project.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Okay, this project has been bid by city engineering already. The portion for water was originally, we had $1 million budgeted, I believe it was in FY '25. There was, the total amount for water share of this is over $4 million because of some groundwater contamination in the area that adds to the cost. We were planning to budget money for it in FY '27's capital budget, but because of available IIP dollars from unspent previously capital budget money, we're going to use IIP to pay for the gap on this one.
Okay. Any questions on this one, colleagues? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Bringing us then to item number 6, we've got a salary ordinance for non-represented management employees of the 61st District Court.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. We'll turn this one back over to Ms. Eddy here.
Hello again. So I'm presenting a salary ordinance for the non-represented management employees of the 61st District Court. These adjustments have already been reviewed and approved by the 61st District Court judges who hold authority to negotiate and approve compensation for these positions. However, since these roles are part of the city's ordinance, the City Commission action is required to approve these changes. The impacted classifications are the court administrator, the deputy court administrator, the eviction prevention holistic facilitator, the problem-solving court case manager, the domestic violence case manager, the magistrate, and the law-trained magistrate. These adjustments will help ensure the court can maintain competitive compensation for these key management roles. This ordinance formalizes the updated salary schedules and ensure that they take effect intended July 1st, 2025.
Okay, thanks. Any questions, colleagues? So you said July of this current?
That is correct.
Okay, so I'm assuming there'll be
It'll
some
be
sort of retro back pay?
That is
Okay,
correct.
Okay. All right. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Bring us to item number 7 now. We've got a salary ordinance amending section 4.2 of ordinance 2025-31, range and title change for the parking services shift supervisor and parking operations superintendent, and the creation of a new classification for parks planning and project manager.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Yes, so I'm presenting an amendment to the Section 4.2 salary ordinance, 2 classifications within mobile GR, and then 1 new classification within Parks and Recreation. At the request of the mobile GR department, we conducted a review of the parking services shift supervisor and the parking operations superintendent roles to ensure the responsibilities, expertise, and pay align with current industry standards. And then based on that analysis, the parking services shift supervisor would become the parking and mobility shift supervisor, moving from a range 10 to a range 12. The parking operations superintendent would become parking and mobility operations manager, moving from a range 16 to an 18. Additionally, the Parks and Recreation Department is requesting the creation of a new classification titled Parks Planning and Project Manager, which will be placed in range 19. This role will oversee park design, construction work, manage the department's 5-year plan, capital plan, and manage the capital millage funding for improvements across more than 90-plus parks and a growing trail system. These changes were reviewed and approved by the Civil Service Board on November 18th, 2025. I am respectfully requesting your approval of this ordinance.
Great, thanks. Any questions on these ones, colleagues? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. That brings us then, item number 8, we've got our bid list resolution for today, December 2nd, 2025.
So move.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. I'll hand this one over to Ms. Claren.
Good morning, Commissioners. On the bid list this morning, fairly routine. We have fun stuff like sewer lining and, of course, snow removal. So, just in time for Christmas. So, yep. If you have any questions, myself or the department directors are here to answer them.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions, colleagues, comments? All right, I did not write down the page number, but the full list is in the packet too, in case people are curious and want to read through those. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item number 9, then, we've got our comptroller's warrant report for the period of November 4th, 2025 through November 17th, 2025, and that's in the amount of $27,402,640.67. And I will forward it over to our deputy comptroller, who's joining us for the first time here. So,
Good morning,
welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. And you just said my whole line, so the report is submitted as you just stated.
Okay.
If there's any questions? I'll
Sure.
be happy to-
Anything specific to call out or?
Nope, if you want me to, I can let you know that the payroll was for that period included $5,870,899.67. Income tax warrants were $282,415.81, which included 700 income tax returns and 1,214 in accounts payable checks.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Well, we'll go ahead and receive and file that. Item number 10 brings us then to our treasurer's report for the similar period, November 5th, 2025 through November 18th, 2025. So we'll hand it over to you.
Great. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
With a report today, following up on what we talked about last Treasurer's report versus this one, we had a probability of a rate hike of 80%, which then dropped down to about 40%. Now it's back up to over 80%. There just continues to be wild swings right now. We expect to see a 25 basis point rate cut, but if we're looking at it, jobs are an issue. They're under very, very, very large challenges in the jobs market right now. We're seeing it more and more. We're seeing layoffs happen. We're seeing people struggling to find work. That is a huge issue right now. Another issue that we're finding out in the positive side is our gross domestic product is averaging about 4%, which is higher than expected. So we've got all these large shifts right now going on. We expect that 25 basis point drop, but other than that, it's kind of like hang on tight, grip the arms of your chair and let's wait for all the news to keep populating through. We still haven't had a good set of economic data come back out again since the federal government reopened. So we're still waiting kind of on pins and needles to see if that's going to show us any more of a clearer picture. But with that, our portfolio is at $720 million and we're at 3.44% return on that investments.
Great, thanks. Any questions, colleagues? Just one quick one from me. Do you know by chance if and when they release that, is it going to be like in aggregate for that whole period, or is it still going to be broken out month to month?
They're probably not going to catch up from what they've already passed.
Okay.
It's probably going to be that here's your next set of economic numbers for the following month's period or quarters period, wherever that might be.
Okay, sure. Just curious. Appreciate the information as always. So we'll go ahead and receive and file that. Bringing us to our last item here, as mentioned, is a follow-up financial update that we didn't get to on our November 13th City Commission workshop. So we are bringing it here before Fiscal Committee this morning. So Ms. Claren, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, good morning. This is, I guess, fourth time's a charm, because I know we had the workshop, then we had Fiscal Committee, Committee of the Whole, and now I'm back here at Fiscal Committee again. So this report was created for the workshop on November 13th. So the data is a little old, and we are much farther along in the audit. So before this is an abbreviated presentation of what I usually give, because of where we were at that point in time. In about a month and a half or so, the city comptroller does his report out for the Citizens Guide that'll contain much more information, like the city's net position, the state of our pension, things like that. So rather than altering my report, I'll let him cover that because he covers it anyway with his citizens report. And but the key takeaways, and it's beautiful that I'm following John Globinski because he did a lot of the work for me this morning as far as where we're at economically. Unemployment is a concern, and Michigan is a little bit higher than the nation. So as we look forward towards creation of the budget, one thing that city manager is going to be talking to departments about is affordability. Knowing that, we do have higher unemployment, and also, what's going on. We seem to have stable consumer demand, but knowing that there are other challenges out there, we want to be mindful of that. The other thing I'll just note, John already addressed the inflation, but yeah, are we going to get a rate decrease or not? It's not a foregone conclusion. So waiting to see what happens with that. And, any weakness in the economy seems to be centered around technology and demographic changes. So it is an interesting time. I have this bullet, uncertainty around tariff policy changes and federal shutdown, past federal shutdown, but every other week it seems like we're talking about, okay, what if this tariff happens, or things seems to be moving quicker at the federal level. So what's going on with the city, we adopted these labor contracts, but we know we're going to have to layer in these costs across all the funds of the city. We did bank or reserve some space in the general fund, so the what we're layering onto the general fund in the out years compared to what we adopted last May is about $6 million across the 3 years of the contracts. We also have the class and comp study and the implementation timing. We're still waiting. I'm still waiting to get data on that, so I know what the impact is going to be. We're hoping to be able to have some forward direction as we shape the budget on that as well, to see, okay, can we time it into when we adopt the budget, or are we going to have to, again, like we did with the labor agreements, leave space for that? And then the next bullet points were all around the federal shutdowns as far as impacts to our grant programs. We're waiting where we were covering with our own city operating funds because we weren't getting reimbursement from the federal government on certain things. I think of the FEMA grant. We fund some of our firefighters through SAFER. So that's one example. And also we did shut off suspensions for our water customers. So having to subsidize that is something that the water fund won't recover. So given it wasn't too costly for them, probably under 50 grand, because it didn't last, I don't think, a total month. But again, that's one thing the city did to help with that affordability issue as we were going through that time. As far as our cash flow, this is what we adopted back in May. So this doesn't include the impact of the labor agreements. I also don't have threaded in yet the finalized 2025 numbers, but you can see we adopted a budget that was already operating at a deficit in the out years. So as we fine tune our revenue expectations, I'll come back and talk to you about that the second meeting of February with the new financial update. And usually I try to get updated revenue numbers, particularly like state sharing numbers. We'll have the revenue conference at the end of January, so we'll be able to update things like that, and also get a good look at about how income taxes performing over the first 6 months of our fiscal year. But zeroing in on those revenues, this is our income tax performance for fiscal year 25, and you can see we performed quite well. A lot of that was driven, you'll see I have overall income tax and then broken out by those different income tax categories, and we were pretty on the money when it comes to, base interest and compliance. But with refunds, you'll see, well, what happened? $8.8 million, and that's largely driven by an accrual adjustment we make at year end. Last few years, we realized we were being way too conservative with what we expected to have to pay back out in refunds. I think a lot of that had to do with the work from home, trying to get our arms around what that is. And we realized we were being way too conservative and outperforming that. So that adjustment was modified drastically. And that's why you see that we're actually going to retain a lot more of that income tax money in the house. Property tax, again, that's kind of our sleepy revenue category because it's limited by how much it can grow due to state law. So again, that's fairly conservative, but we do like to see a little bit of positive growth there. And then state sharing as well as gas and weight tax outperformed our expectations. So again, that's again positive news, knowing what we're up against as far as absorbing some cost. As far as our debt issuances, we have been issuing a lot of debt over the last couple years. I listed out what we've been doing since fiscal year '24, and you'll recall the large issuances of like the soccer stadium, amphitheater. Of course, we did that on behalf of the county. While we had a secure revenue source, that is debt that goes against our full faith and credit. So should that revenue stream fall short, we do have a waterfall protection where we do have a reserve to help pay that, but just something to keep in mind out there. You know, and then other initiatives like Lion Square and you know, street lighting, parks projects. Those are other things we've issued for. On the horizon, we'll probably do some more. Well, we just got done with the water and sewer refunding. We'll be giving you a report of bond sale on that in January, but again, very positive, achieved some savings for those funds. We have the fire training center on the horizon, and right now, we have $12 million reserved to issue debt for related to Calder Plaza. So again, you know, that's what we know about now. This will be refined when we go through budget. Impact of the state budget changes. I know we've had a few conversations on that. They created a new category this year for state shared revenue with the public safety allowance. You can see, you know, we come out a little bit ahead overall on state sharing, but they reduced our constitutional amount a little bit, you know, to help pay for that. So while we did pick up some pennies, 1.7 million for a public safety amount, that is, you know, not a huge gain necessarily overall for the city. Gas and weight tax, you'll see within this fiscal year, we're picking up about 5 million there. So. And with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll turn to my colleague and see if they have any. I had one quick question, but I'll see if they have anything first. All good? All righty. Just curious, I know, and this was a comment even back with Mayor Bliss about, being conservative about our revenues, and I know I'd much rather us, assume we're going to have less than the opposite, because that could put us in a bad spot. But just curious, once we have some of those updated revenue numbers, like, do we have any idea, estimate of like how that's going to impact the bottom line deficit? Just looking.
Absolutely, and that's something we should definitely talk about in February. One thing I can share with you is we used to use withholding and income tax as we'd always be right on the money with our estimation. Pre-COVID years.
Sure.
So that was a good indicator of how we were going to perform. The COVID kind of threw that out the door, because now this work from home and alternative work schedules, things like that, has really impacted how we estimate income tax. And, it used to be John O'Connor and I used to go back and forth like, Molly, what's going on? And it's always to the good. We always make more than what we were estimating. So yeah, we came out of COVID still being fairly conservative with how we estimate, but seeing how we're in this new reality and we're trying to get our arms around, okay, what is a better way to estimate? We've partnered with GVSU to create a forecasting model. So rather than using what we do in-house, but comparing that to what they think what they think are good market indicators, things like that. I'm supposed to get my first, get to kick the tires of this model this month, so I'm kind of excited to see it.
Cool. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's going to, they're going to go back a few years to see, okay, here's what we would have estimated compared to what we did, and we'll see how that compares. So we are honing in on that category, because I agree with you, we have been conservative. And
Yep. No, so essentially you'll be taking that model, applying past year's data to see how accurate it would have been.
Yeah, and then applying it to, okay, let's use it for the, for mid-year, when I recast revenue based on what we hear from the state and other, other revenue sources, and also, so we'll be updating all of our revenues when I report back to you in February.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. I'm looking at like FY26 is just $1 million, surplus, and then 27, like we're already, multi-million-dollar deficit. So just trying to think through, and hopefully the model proves, that it's going to be back into the surplus, but
Yeah, and
just
this-
something to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah,
for us.
and these numbers are from, this is what we adopted the budget with.
Yep.
So we know more now. We've started the fiscal year '27 budget, but what departments also do is scrub down what they're actually going to spend in this fiscal year. So you will see, that tighten down a little bit and we'll, again, looking at affordability, looking at the cost of what we do and what we can get done within the fiscal year. All those conversations are being had right now, so.
Okay, got it. Awesome. Well, if there's no other questions, we can go ahead and wrap up this presentation then. Appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting at 8:55.
Good morning. The time is now 9:30. Nice to see everyone. I hope you all had a good holiday. And Commissioner Purdue is not here, but we only have one item today, so we are going to go ahead and call this committee meeting to order at 9:30. The first item is a resolution approving an agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation for bridge reconstruction work on Martin Luther King Jr. Street over US 131 CSX Railroad and Grand Elk Railroad, and authorizing $1,413,100 for the local share of project costs. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll support that. And is this you, Mr. McCall? All right, thank you.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Yes, this project will be bid by the Department of Transportation. They anticipate taking bids this Friday in their monthly bid letting. The project will reconstruct the bridge they call it over 131, but it's really from the east side of the on-off ramps all the way to just west of Ionia Avenue. We've had some previous items that have came to the commission for some easements that have been approved, agreements with the railroad, and also a noise variance was approved back in August. The work will be beginning this spring. The city's share is for our required Act 51 share, and then also we've requested MDOT to put in wider sidewalks, so the sidewalks will be 10-foot wide on both sides of the bridge, and that portion of the work will be funded by the Vital Streets Fund.
That will be a nice addition. And yes, just a reminder, we had that noise variance because of the timing of the work that needs to happen and the timing of the project.
Correct, yeah, they want to do some concrete pours at night mostly, or things that are
Okay.
less noisy, but.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McCall. Commissioner, do you have any questions on this item?
Not really. Thank you so much.
Thanks for this. I'm sure we'll continue to hear about this. Thank you for that good overview, because I think sometimes we do pieces and parts and we forget that it's all connected to one project. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And with that, we are adjourned at 9:32. Thanks.
of the whole to order. Our first item of business is a resolution regarding liquor control. Madam Clerk, if you could.
Thank you, Mayor. Brands is seeking a liquor license for their
Support.
Thank you.
Brands is seeking a liquor license for their new catering facility on Hall Street. All the vetting was met.
Any discussion, colleagues? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Second item, I believe Ms. Renero is going to introduce for us, and that is a resolution establishing an industrial development district for Falk Material Wood at 1920 Northridge Northwest. I believe this has been in front of us for an overview previously. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Ms. Renero.
Yes, this went to public hearing at last commission meeting. Just a reminder, this project is the construction of 82,500 square feet of production facility for Falk, and will add 14 new employees to the company with ranges of wages between $25 and $55 an hour. The value over the life of the abatement, which is 12 years, is about $1.8 million, with the city's portion, because of the split with Walker, at $337,000. So I just wanted to give you some context there on the value. Happy to take any questions.
I'll ask a really, really old question that shows that I was around 20 years ago on commission, but we used to get a simple cheat sheet on these sorts of things that sort of projected out expected income tax gains. I don't know that I saw it.
Yes,
Is
we
it already
have
in
the
there?
table. Oh, please tell me. I'm seeing a project projection table. Are you guys seeing it? In your-
Well, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
So if you could just highlight that briefly, that'd be great.
Oh, sure, yes. So the total investment amount for real property is $8.8 million roughly. We talked about the average hourly wage. Total new generated taxes for 1 year is $156,990,000, which is where I'm multiplying that by 12 to get my 1.8 million roughly in value. Taxes paid that first year will be $87,914, abated $69,076, and then we have a column on the far right dedicated to the City of Grand Rapids portion of those dollars.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Any discussion, colleagues? All right, thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to our next item. Also, Ms. Renero, can I have a motion for this? This is the 12 years industrial facilities exemption for Falk also.
So moved.
Same project, correct?
Yes, it is the same project. So we just talked about the district. This is about the exemption certificate, and we can bring them at the same time over the course of the public meetings with the city, different than what a neighborhood enterprise zone would look like, for example, for the next agenda item for 125 Ottawa. But
Great. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to 125 Ottawa. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
So at the last commission meeting, we saw the public hearing for the neighborhood enterprise zone. We're talking about the Brownfield Plan amendment this morning. This is approving an amendment for the Brownfield Plan at 125 Ottawa. To jog the memory, this is a rehabilitation of an existing office building, floors 2 through 4, into 36 residential apartments. This will be our second transition from office to residential downtown, led by Sam Cummings. And will allow us to submit the work plan, the Act 381 work plan, to the State Housing Authority, MISTA, tomorrow, assuming that's supported at our Brownfield Redevelopment Authority meeting. And then at the next commission meeting, you'll see the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone District back before you.
Great. Any discussion, colleagues? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to our briefings. And if Ms. Eddy could come, not
Mayor,
Ms. Eddy.
before you start, I'd like your permission to step down from the dais here. I hope you all know that I'm interested in the permanent position. I intend to compete and submit my information on this, but I think to make sure that you get an unbiased approach. And if you have any legal questions, we've set you up with legal counsel other than myself on this particular item. I'll go sit in the audience and receive this for the first time with the public.
Thanks. And I talked to our city attorney briefly beforehand. I don't think we needed a substitute for him on the dais for this discussion, since this is just a briefing. But yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, Ovell Barbie, interim HR leader. As you are aware, we are beginning
Word that your mic might not be on.
Sorry. Good morning, Ovell Barbie, interim HR leader for the city of Grand Rapids. As you are aware, we are beginning the recruitment process for our next city attorney, one of our most critical appointed leadership positions. To support a comprehensive, professional, and competitive search, we have engaged Mosaic Public Partners to lead the effort. Today, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Greg Nelson from Mosaic, who will be leading the effort on behalf of the city. Greg has a strong background in executive-level public sector recruitment and brings deep knowledge of the unique skills and leadership qualities required for a successful city attorney. Today, he will provide an overview of the recruitment process and the timeline. We are looking forward to working closely with Greg throughout this process and ensuring that our approach is thorough, transparent, and aligned with the needs and expectations of the commission and the community. With that, please join me in welcoming Greg Nelson.
Thank you and good morning. As a native of Peoria, Illinois, the weather feels very familiar. So it's good to be in Grand Rapids. I've met very nice people already today and looking forward to working with the commission on this very important recruitment. It's often said that the appointments of the commission are some of the biggest decisions you'll have to make. You don't have many positions that you're able to select, but the city attorney is a very key one, and we're here to work with you in partnership to have a successful outcome. I won't belabor the introduction. I thank you for that, Ovell, but I want to just kind of get into what to expect over the course of this recruitment and how the City Commission will be very heavily involved in this process and what to expect going forward. So I like to think of 3 phases of a search, and we'll go through those in a moment. And that is going to be, 1, to develop a candidate profile to really understand what you as a City Commission are looking for and need in your next city attorney. 1 is to actually do the work of outreach and recruiting. That's probably the part that everyone goes to right away when you think about a search, is generating candidates and having good, diverse options for you to consider at the end. And then 3rd is to have that selection process, a thoughtful selection process that's going to yield you the candidate that you're looking for. And then we'll go through the timeline and next steps in the presentation. Again, first part of the recruitment is going to occur mostly in December, and that's developing the candidate profile. Second part will be early 26, outreach and recruiting. And the 3rd part, the selection process, will be likely around March, and we'll go through the timeline in more detail. So the purpose of the candidate profile, as I mentioned before to you, is to really call out and as specifically as possible identify what you as a commission are looking for in your next city attorney. No 2 cities are the same, and no 2 searches are the same, even in the same city during different periods of time, because your needs change. And so I really want to spend time listening and learning and understanding from all of you and identified stakeholders of what the specific attributes we should be looking for in candidates. And so we'll meet with each member of you one-on-one. We also want to meet with key members of the city staff, city manager and other key executives, just because they work very closely with the city attorney and they have a perspective to be considered. And then other key stakeholders, and again, I don't know your city like you know your city, so I'm working with your team to help identify those key stakeholders. So after today, I think there are 3 major touch points for the City Commission. 1 is in providing input in the candidate profile development, and I'll be scheduling time to meet with each of you one-on-one to get your individual perspectives and talk about the search process, but mostly for me to listen and learn. And at the end of this process, close to the end of the month, we're going to have a candidate profile, which we use as the recruitment brochure. And we really want that document to help self-select. We want candidates to read the brochure and understand if this job is right for them or not right for them. The ones that feel called to it and feel like they're aligned are often the candidates that end up being the best candidates. Some will pick it up and say, that's not for me, and that's fine. We really want to focus on the candidates that are well aligned. Again, these activities will occur through the month of December, and by the end of the month, we should have the search open. And that takes us into the second phase of the recruitment, which is outreach and recruiting. Our goal is to always generate a diverse selection of qualified candidates to give you choices. We want you as a city commission, our client, to have choices of candidates. We are somewhat limited by your charter that the city attorney has to be able to practice in the state of Michigan. And while we will advertise nationally looking for those attorneys that have maybe been in Michigan, maybe left and came back, our most fruitful ground will be within the state because that's where the most of the qualified candidates will reside. And things we do to generate candidates, we source candidates from 5 primary areas. One is a passive way, which is advertising, which I just touched upon. We're going to do an advertising campaign that's designed to attract the candidates that we're looking to recruit. 2 is going to be direct outreach, interacting with people that we either know or have connected with in the past, either as candidates or seeking nominations, asking them if they can recommend good candidates as well. So that's 2 and 3. 4, which is probably going to be our most fruitful in this search, is through research. We're going to identify every single person that we want to try to reach and do direct outreach to them. Oftentimes the best candidates are not looking for work. They don't go home and look at the job boards. They are busy doing good work where they're at, and we need to engage them and start a conversation about Grand Rapids and why this may be a good match for them. And then 5, increasingly over time, no surprise, social media, LinkedIn campaigns are also very successful as well. In this outreach and recruiting phase, I'll be available to provide updates throughout the process. We're going to work really hard to manage candidate confidentiality as long as we can. In this process, as you can imagine, names will become public at some point. And we want to make sure that candidates know when that will happen, that there are no surprises, and at the same time try to attract the maximum amount of talent that we can. And that's always a challenge because people don't always want their current employers to know that they might be looking at another opportunity. So we're going to work with your legal staff to identify where that right balance is and manage confidentiality. And the outreach and recruiting should occur through January and February. The selection process, again, is to design, or the goal is to design a thoughtful interview and selection process that is going to give the city commission the best information possible to help select. I will be here again on site to facilitate that process and help you kind of just keep your eyes on the candidate profile and the attributes that we really need to be focused on as we are selecting candidates. And this is another opportunity where the full city commission needs to be involved, and really everybody needs to be there as part of this process. Once that process is yielded, the candidate that you're interested in, we have some final vetting to do. We'll do much of it along the way, but there are some final steps. And then I'll work with the city and the HR team through negotiations with the candidate with the goal of having an appointment for your next city attorney in April. I provided in the presentation in the slide deck in very small print on the screen, but some more specific dates and targets of what we just covered in the process. So again, next steps are going to be for me to schedule meetings with each of you, with identified stakeholders. We've already collected all the information from the HR team. They provided us that already, and we're already working on the early steps of the profile, but you'll be hearing from me over this week and next to get those meetings scheduled. We are coming up on the holidays, and so really we want to make the best use of this time to be ready to open when the market is prime, and that is right after the holidays, or at least right after Christmas, that week where people are often not working as much and maybe more reachable and thinking about the new year and new opportunities and what they may want to do the next year. So I think timing for the search is ideal, honestly. If we were a couple of months earlier, timing could be a challenge, but I think timing's ideal in this case. And I'll pause there and see if you have any questions from.
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the overview. I'd like to zone in a little bit on what you mentioned related to outreach and recruiting.
Yes.
You mentioned the role of Michigan-based candidates. My understanding is there's some sort of a period in which if folks don't have their license in Michigan, they can obtain it. And I understand it's pretty reasonable. And so with that understanding, I don't want the majority of our search to focus on Michigan. I truly would like a true national search. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to that. What's your response to that?
I can, and I've already started some conversations about that with your legal team. Early conversations are that if someone is able to obtain their Michigan license through reciprocity, in other words, they're licensed in another state, and that state has an arrangement with the state of Michigan where they can get their license through reciprocity, that could be a viable candidate because that process is relatively efficient. If someone needs to go through the steps to get their license for the first time, kind of the full steps, that would probably be problematic because your charter requires that in order for you to appoint your city attorney, that attorney be admitted to practice in Michigan. And so we could certainly focus broader, and I'll gain that direction from all of you, meeting with you and hoping to attract candidates that can come into Michigan through reciprocity.
Do you know how many states have that with Michigan?
I don't know, but we'll know for sure. We're just in the early stages of this, but we'll identify
Okay,
that.
I'd be curious to know that.
Go ahead.
One more. Did you have something on this?
Yeah, actually. So this is something that, colleagues, I'd like you to consider, and we should have some consensus on. But the answer, Commissioner Perdue, is not many. But it's also true that I think there's a question of whether we want to take a relatively more aggressive approach here or a relatively more conservative approach to how we interpret the charter. So the charter saying someone can't be appointed without being able to practice in Michigan is unambiguous at a first cut. On the other hand, every law firm in America hires people who haven't passed the bar and then hopes that they will pass the bar. So it would probably, if we were to choose, for example, just give a hypothetical, someone who practiced for 30 years in New Jersey, moved here and, became a pastor for 10 years and decided they wanted to be our city attorney. New Jersey doesn't have reciprocity, so they'd have to go take the bar. And the bar is only given a couple times a year, so that lengthens the process. And then the state bar has to bury your test scores in the backyard for 2 or 3 months before they look at them. You'd think they'd be able to score them on the way out the door, given we have, computers got invented. But it still takes a couple months for you to get your bar results back. So realistically, if if that hypothetical person wanted to get licensed in Michigan, it's at least a 6-month process. Then the question is, if we all decided, yes, this is the perfect person, there's probably a way that would survive legal muster, that we could make that person an interim, or we could hire them in the city attorney's office but not have them be the head of the office, and make their appointment provisional. Now, I'm just speaking very, very I'm getting ahead of my skis a little bit here because the city attorney hasn't given me any guidance on that. But that's my intuition, is that there would be space for us to do that workaround. It would have some inconvenience associated with it, and it'd be substantial inconvenience because we wouldn't have an official city attorney for about 6 months longer. We could almost certainly have that person in the office, and if the expectation, then we also risk what every law firm risks, which is they don't pass the bar. And that person doesn't pass the bar, then it gets a little awkward and embarrassing, and the question is, do you let that person go because they didn't pass the bar? So it's a complicated discussion.
Yeah, no, that's helpful to understand a little bit more about what that will look like in practice and see the concerns with extending this process another 6 months. So thank you for speaking to that. The other question I have is related to your advertising methods. I just would love to hear a little bit more, because you mentioned it separately from social media and LinkedIn. Can you talk a little bit more about where this advertising is? What type of is it? Is it paid? What's your typical reach? Just say more about kind of the success of your advertising work.
Sure, yeah. Just speaking generally, when we do an executive search, we develop an advertising campaign, and we're going to look in 3 general areas where we place advertisements, and they're all paid advertisements. And there are going to be those that are very specific to the industry itself. So there is both a International Municipal Attorneys Association that's very specific to this field of municipal law. There are oftentimes state associations that are similar. So that's going to be one category. A second category are going to be general government sites. And so, for example, the International City County Management Association, while on its face is really an association for city managers, it really has membership across all municipal professions, and there are a lot of city attorneys that are members there as well. So that could be another general government advertising site. And then third, we're going to advertise in sites that are going to help us to achieve a diverse candidate pool. And so there are going to be associations that are directed at specific demographics. So, for example, the National Forum of Black Public Administrators, the Local Government Hispanic Network, and so on. And we want to hit those 3 categories in our advertising campaign. And then separately from that, we advertise and promote on LinkedIn as well.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
She was pointing at me, that's what, yeah. Thanks, colleague. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. We had an opportunity to chat, and so thank you for outlining this overview. And I think it's really helpful to have this conversation because, colleague, you just shared the experiences of sort of, we are doing a national search. For me, one of the pieces that I'm looking for is somebody who does have experience with Michigan state law. I think that is an important thing to me. We're in the state of Michigan. We're governed by, obviously, the charter and our state laws here. And so, I think we have a lot of boomerang effects here in the state of Michigan. We've had a lot of activity of people who have been here and who have left and who've come back. Ms. Behrens, aren't you one of those people that were here and then you left and you came back? And, I'm sure there's other people in the audience like that. So I'm hopeful that through that, I would also say all those entities that you mentioned, we have strong membership in ICMA, NFBPA, all of those groups. So I think that's also another positive that we've been a site of conferences and hosted in different areas. My question was really around, so those were just some of my comments, but my question was around, during that, the outreach and recruiting, and then getting to that timeline of, kind of in between that to the candidate screening and evaluation. What is a typical or, would be a good sort of, search to yield for a city our size and for the position? Obviously, we've, getting that profile, salary, all those things.
Are you? Apologize. Could you restate the question? I'm not sure if you're looking for.
What would be a realistic? I think I mentioned to you today. I think our mayor is the only person who has done a hiring an appointed individual. So this is my 6th year, but I haven't been a part of that process. And so, could you share for us what would be a typical amount of candidates that you would feel, okay, this constitutes a strong candidate pool? Obviously, you'll have some people who apply that might be, pulled out, people apply for jobs for all sorts of reasons, but what would be a realistic and successful candidate pool then you could go into that screening process then to present to us?
Thank you, Commissioner. I thought that's where you were going. I just wanted to be sure. So I hate to say it depends, but it depends. There are a number of factors that are really going to affect the size of the candidate pool. I really like to think about it in terms of quality and not quantity, and sometimes you can have really large numbers of candidates and not have the person you want. And sometimes you can have a very, very small candidate pool and have several great choices. So quality is more important than quantity. And a lot of it will depend on the direction you as a commission give me. And the issue, for example, that we just talked about the scope of the search and where we're looking, once I've met with each of you and have a better sense of what that is and how wide we can cast our net, that will have a huge impact on maybe the number of candidates that do apply. So it's hard to say. Some of these are 10 or less, and some of these are 30 or more. A lot of things really go into that.
Thank you. I just wanted to give that perspective, as you said. I mean, this is a job where, hopefully people are interested in our city and then would see, hopefully, that, we're one of the best run cities, we, list are that, but also the experiences here that, they're bringing a family or other individuals. We talked a little bit about that, what makes the position attractive overall, certainly the working environment, but a lot of times people are bringing an entire family with them too. But also we have, I imagine, we're a city that has also promoted to grow your own and have internal candidate pools as well. So we'll be balancing, that piece of, we're obviously doing a larger search. We also know that there will be internal individuals, but how do we kind of best position ourselves? So just wanted to give ourselves sort of a baseline to say, well, if it's 10, like as you just said, it's quantity over quality. So these 10 are really strong because we've hit these things that you all said you wanted in the candidate profile. Maybe one of us really want to see 25 people. So I just wanted to put that out there to balance our expectations in this process.
Yeah, and understand too, another consideration is I'll be working with your legal team to identify the best balance of that confidentiality issue that we talked about before. We don't necessarily, it's not in anyone's best interest to have people compete that are not going to be selected and have their own careers potentially damaged by having, their names out and their current employer finding out. And so I'll be working with your team on how we'll manage that process and how many really viable candidates may be presented to the commission for consideration.
So let me ask a minor question, and that is, I didn't see. I'm assuming that you're contemplating in this timeline that there's going to be community forum, community engagement. So, but the only thing you listed here was stakeholder meeting at the very outset. So, if I was guessing where community forums were to go in that process, I was guessing it'd either be in the candidate screening and evaluation stage or the selection process, the final selection process. But I'm assuming that it's fairly standard when you get down to your three finalists, that there's a public forum and not simply a city commission conversation. Can you speak to that?
Yes, Mayor. Community engagement is very important for public positions, and we always see the value of that. There are different opportunities to include engagement, and I'm really going to take my cues from you as my client. I'm going to offer you some options about when pros and cons and where to best do that engagement, and then we'll design that process around it. But I really want to have that conversation with each of you and then confer with your staff as well.
Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you for coming. Looking forward to this. Sounds like you're going to set up meetings with all of us. You don't live on Fulton Street, so I'm assuming most of this is going to be by Zoom. But yeah, thank you for making the trip and for doing this work for us. Sounds like we got a process and we're off to the races. So great.
Right. Thank you all. Really appreciate this opportunity and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
This brings us to our, another update on the noise ordinance conversation. So, Mr. Strom.
Good morning. Phil Strom, interim city attorney, licensed to practice in Michigan, third ward resident, just saying. Well, this is on the briefing number 2, potential ordinance to regulate amplified sound near medical facilities. If you could pull the agenda item up, I intentionally did not do a long verbose PowerPoint on this item. It did come to you previously. We talked about the history. We talked about the current status of why we're addressing this now. This isn't a staff-led initiative. It really came from a citizen-led effort to get us to pay attention to what was going on specifically down in the Cherry neighborhood with amplified sound around the Planned Parenthood medical facility. You directed us to do some more community outreach at the Committee of the Whole meeting when we met. We did that. We did a virtual listening session. Dr. Andrea Riley-Mukovic was helpful in leading that. We did a targeted approach to other medical facilities and invited them to learn about why we were talking about this, what the state law was, and what type of options were available. The general feedback that we got, first of all, it's my understanding that the 4 or 5 medical facilities that participated was about the sample size that we expected. This isn't a broad issue that's being felt by other medical facilities in our city, but they were warm to the idea of regulating amplified sound to protect their patients and protect their employees from people making noise or protesting around their facilities. I would say that was the feedback that I walked away from that virtual town hall with. We also had a survey that went out, and again, Dr. Riley-Mukovic is likely better to give you analysis into those survey results. There were, I think, 4 or 5 results. I attached the report to this agenda item if you have more interest in that. But again, open to regulation, not objecting to the concept, certainly interested in protecting patient and client privacy, but not really experiencing this the same way that the medical facility is down on Cherry Street. We then took that report and that information and the concept to the Public Safety Committee, which is, is 3 elected officials, and there's citizen representation there. We heard, I would say, strong advocacy from one of the citizen representatives that felt like this was a good move. There was at least one other citizen on that Public Safety Committee that I think was supportive, and at least 2 of the 3 the mayor and one other commissioner suggested that this come back to COW and that they would be open to looking at taking the next step to further regulate amplified sound around medical facilities. The staff concerns are, one, the definition of healthcare facility is pretty broad in our code of ordinances right now. And so this would apply to a lot of facilities, including, I think, dental offices, physical therapy offices, and other healthcare treatment facilities that exist across our city in large numbers. They certainly don't get the type of activity that we're currently is being called to our attention. But if we were to adopt the same definition for healthcare facility, it would have a very broad impact across our city, across the wards. There's always a concern when you're inviting the police to have more contact with individuals around protest or free speech activities, that could cause additional tensions, and there could be unintended consequences by having more ordinances that invite that sort of contact. On the flip side of that, if we clearly define that you can't have amplified sound within 100 feet, there's that clarity that exists that might help us draw those lines. So we have a question for you. If you scroll up on this, whoever's controlling the screen just a little bit, the process of changing an ordinance takes some time. So if a majority of the Committee of the Whole would like to see the ordinance changed, down on this second page of the memo, there's a sample that we would bring forward for a first reading. There's a 30-day window that allows for public comment. There's a final adoption process. We have intentionally not started that process today. We didn't feel like we were ready to get there. We wanted to hear if there's at least 4 commissioners that think that's the right next step, then we will get that on a future agenda. I'd invite the city manager or any other staff that have been, this has really been a collaborative effort to try to think thoughtfully through this and not do anything that would have unintended consequences, and make sure that you know all the risks associated with this sort of ordinance revision.
May I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, City Attorney, for that overview, and Mayor and Commissioners for your work, especially Public Safety Committee, who discussed this at length. Mr. Davis is unable to be here this morning, but specifically, as we have been talking about ways to reduce police interaction on non-violent types of offenses, and focusing on your efforts of previous discussion of decriminalization, I think this would be something that would invite more police contact. And we know how sensitive interactions around people who are exercising their First Amendments have been in the past. And so while the officers would appreciate the clarity in the ordinance, I just wanted to make sure, as a city attorney, highlighted both intended and unintended consequences when we start to start more enforcement around this area, like any other ordinance. And I think that was the same other concerns in which ordinances we put on the books. So not sure if the chief, I think he have anything else to add. I think he certainly said he appreciated the officer's clarity. Chief, do you have anything else to add?
Good morning. I will say just I have had discussions with my Central Surface Area officers, and as far as the concern of more interaction with police, I would say that is for us, it's a low concern, because as of now, we are responding on a weekly basis, if not more, to this location and dealing with a sort of gray area. So the feedback internally that I've got from my personnel is a more bright line rule of whether or not this certain behavior is allowed or is not allowed is easier for the police to interact with individuals than dealing with a ordinance which is more gray as far as how loud is a normal conversation at 100 feet. So again, we stand ready to, we are willing to do our job in whatever way the city commission directs us to. And so not taking a position either way, but just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Chief. And I think if I can go first here, I think the question of policing non-violent activities is a very broad conversation, because, of course, lots of traffic stops fall into that category. The classic cracked taillight stop isn't because a cracked taillight's an act of violence. So the question about how we do policing and the numbers of people involved in those kinds of interactions, I think is far, far higher. I mean, that's a much bigger, this is a very much smaller conversation than that. I would want to reiterate so as the stripped down language that you have there, City Attorney, I think I've said several times that, first of all, I would welcome an ordinance which explicitly said a first offense simply gets explained what the rules of the road are. So the first time an officer saw an individual, officers can ask people to identify themselves. So if Bob Smith's using a megaphone, you can say, okay, Bob, here's the city ordinance, you're not allowed to do it. Second offense could escalate into civil infractions, but I also would like something tailored language that would explicitly prevent this ever becoming a misdemeanor offense. And so that's not in this language. The other thing that I would welcome, so separating the question of whether we do this or not, which I think we have to decide first, but I at least want to point out that I don't think it would be impossible to say healthcare facility other than, and so within the ordinance itself, specifically peel out the things that that we don't consider healthcare facilities. So dentist offices, PT, and if you had a list of things that we could specifically say other than those, we don't have to change what we define as a healthcare ordinance generally, but for the purpose of this statute, we could pull some of those things out, and I think that would be productive. That's drafting conversation, but I at least want to point that out before we make our decision about whether there's will to move forward on the general idea.
Thank you for that. Open to any consensus around those things. The way that the code works right now is there's a schedule of things that are civil infractions. Noise ordinance is that. So the first offense is a $100 fine, civil infraction, I believe. It graduates if you get multiple offenses within a certain period of time, not just charges, but convictions or findings of responsibility. It's only if you have 3 convictions within a 6-month period does it elevate to that misdemeanor level. And I think there's only been 1 case in the last 6 years that I've been here where that was actually the case.
Yeah. I always am a big fan of drafting for the result you want, not for your experience thus far. So I think we have the ability to simply exempt this from any criminal sanction. Then I would be very, very, frankly, I wouldn't support this if I thought that there would be criminal sanctions involved. So I'm very strongly supportive of not having a criminal sanction be an option here. Colleagues, sorry, should have asked. Commissioner Knight?
A number of thoughts on that particular piece, because no, we do not want the unintended consequences, right, on people. But then, again, that's that thin line between, free speech and violating somebody's personal space, right? I have issues with people who are under-resourced, need help, going to a place where they can receive those services, being shamed and degraded and disrespected. You catch more flies or more bees with honey, flies with honey, right? And so doing that, they're not changing anything. I like the 100 feet. I struggle with the, with the fee. However, I would think that in the policing aspect of it, they have a modicum of using discretion, right? And saying, listen, this is what you've done. You can't be here. That's where you got to be. Go there without slapping someone a ticket every time. I have to believe that that can happen, right? Especially as we continue to move towards now more community policing, where we have people that are out in the street, that know the neighborhoods, that know somebody's name, that can have a conversation, that can diffuse a situation. And as far as the vagueness of the statement, healthcare facilities, I don't know a dentist office that has been, protested against for putting a filling in. You know what I mean? So I don't think they would necessarily care.
You haven't met my cousins.
Probably only your cousins. So I don't, you know what I mean? I don't see the necessary of picking that piece apart because it's not going to harm them, right? It's only going to provide a protection for them should that happen in the future, should the one black dentist in this city get protested against because she gives people tongue scrapers, right? So I guess my only issue would be people getting a $100 ticket for crossing that 100 and being on 90. I got an issue right now just of some feet for some things, right? And I'm like, yeah, come on, right? 10 inches, 10 feet, sir, step back. This is your line. But I do agree that people deserve to have their right to their choices. And they're responsible for the outcomes of those choices. And shaming people, especially primarily women, because that's who's going, is disrespectful. and they're not changing anything.
Other thoughts? Commissioner Robbins.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I sit on the Public Safety Committee and was the individual who expressed some concerns about those, and I do think I still have those. I think even, when it came before us at Public Safety, and we've tried to be clear that, like, we want to be, most respectful of people's First Amendment rights and free speech and things like that. But even at that body, I think the conversation very quickly started broadening, and there was just constant undertones about what was being said and not necessarily where. And I think that's my biggest concern is that's, I don't know, it almost feels like kind of using a Band-Aid solution for a very specific type of instance that's occurring, but really being used to kind of usurp what people are saying in that area, if that makes sense. So that's my biggest concern is that it would open us up to, First Amendment free speech claims too. But I think, sound, amplified sound specifically has been, a concern in various parts of the city overall, not just in this location too. So what I said then and what I'll say now is I would prefer for us not to include an ordinance specific to any, sort of type of organization, but better figure out how we can enforce amplified sound, whether it's in neighborhoods, whether it's, downtown, anywhere. I think if we can experiment or look at what other cities are doing to better enforce what we've got on the books already, that would be my preference. So for those concerns, I wouldn't be supportive of adding to the ordinance, but would love to see ways that we can figure out how to better enforce what we've got.
Commissioner Sassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Strom, for this overview. I was able to sit in on Public Safety last week, or 2 weeks ago, last week as well, to review this. This is something that was really in my inbox pretty much the year I started, and Commissioner Kelly, my predecessor, worked on with individuals in this neighborhood as well. So this has been a concern, I would say, for the last 5+ years for individuals. We've had other noise considerations that we worked on for 5+ years. You were a part of that as well, with a business over also in the Second Ward. And so, I think I'm supportive of this language. I'm the individual who, I think brought this initially to city manager and to your guys' office. And, I know, Mayor, you, those are some of your neighbors in this area as well. I don't want to criminalize activity. I also want to curb activity. I think the reality is when somebody goes to me is, I think why we looked at these specific ordinances, these bubble ones are related to healthcare, is because we had this idea that when you're going into, yes, that there are sound issues all around. Typically, the sound would be moving around. So you might start here on the Calder, but then you might go all around and you might end up in another part of time. You're not sort of stationary, but that individuals who are stationary at a place where individuals would receive care, regardless of whatever the care is that is that is not the kind of environment that we want to promote. And so I'm supportive of it the way it is. If there's other colleagues who want to ensure more, any less criminalization, I would certainly support that as well. I can't remember the other thing that you said, Mayor, in terms of what would take you to support it. So I might be the only one who is supporting it on the face, but I'd be open to my colleagues to recognize that as well. But I think that this is something that neighbors in this particular part of the city have been dealing with for a number of years. And so I'm glad we're at this point. Thank you for that feedback from Mr. Davis and the chief for providing that feedback as well. So you can see that this is a regular occurrence, right? So the chief said, at least once a week. And I think having a little bit more clarity on this would be, a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Let's see. I think we should hear from everyone since we're sort of polling. So Commissioner Belcheck and Commissioner Knight, Commissioner Kilgore, whether you want to or not.
Thank you, Mayor. I am supportive of an ordinance that would help create clarity for enforcement. I agree that we should not be criminalizing it. So any, review or additional language, I am in favor of that. And or even to the point of putting on our agenda that we look at our whole list of civil infractions and review that in the coming months and year. I think that as long as we're taking a balanced approach and balancing the First Amendment rights as well as patient privacy and care, quality of life in the neighborhoods, I think this is a reasonable thing to move forward with.
Thank you. Commissioner Koger?
Yes, I concur.
Okay, thank you. I think I counted 5 in support of proceeding. So thank you, City Attorney. Commissioner Perdue, I'm so sorry.
I think this question started with a very specific scenario in Heritage Hill related to folks going to seek care and feeling harassed, and neighbors and the neighborhood association seeing that and being concerned about that, and we're looking for a solution. I really appreciate the engagement done on this with the medical providers to get their input. I think that was something that came from our last conversation at Cal. I'm curious to hear a bit more, thinking of the initial problem, right, the initial question. I'm not sure how much this language matches the initial problem. And we haven't, it sounds like in our engagement process, talked to the folks that we're trying to protect. We've only talked to the medical providers, but we haven't heard directly or doing some sort of focus group to hear from kind of this population that we're trying to protect, to see if this will actually get at the core of their challenges. So I appreciate the conversation. I agree there's been a lot of points raised on how we might approach this, both from ensuring that officers have clarity when they go to cause like this, to being very mindful about unintended consequences. All of that being said, I think right now this feels a bit it feels a little bit off from the initial problem. And so without that background, without hearing from that constituency group, I am not prepared to bring this forward to vote on or kind of do the full process. But I would like to see us go back and really do some problem solving, design thinking, workshops, a very creative approach to really dig into what is the core problem here and what might be our more explicit, direct role in solving that problem. I think this is a really thoughtful, creative approach to trying to do that. But right now, without those other inputs from the constituency group that we have centered in this conversation, or at least the original conversation, I wouldn't be prepared to support it today.
Thank you. So, thank you, City Attorney. Go
For a
ahead.
point of clarification, are you asking about or suggesting more engagement with the protesters or the amplified sound makers or the patients and the workers of the healthcare facilities, or all of the above?
Probably both, but initially in my comments just now I was thinking about potential patients, or they don't have to be actual patients. There's a lot of privacy concerns there, but it could be a represented sample of what a patient group might be, and walking through this will be your experience when this is people's current experience when this happens. How do you experience that? How might that impact your confidence and feelings of safety and security to get care? What will help you? Is it that they're farther away? Is it that it's lower sound? Is it that X, Y, and Z? So I think digging in there, I will feel more confident that we have truly matched our solution with the initial problem.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you for the briefing.
So, just for clarity, then what are the next steps?
I intend to bring back a proposed ordinance change that has options for either full decriminalization of noise ordinance complaints, or keeping the current graduated consequence for the noise ordinance. We'll have a public comment process as part of that noise ordinance change. I'll also refocus in with our community engagement team to see if there's a way to kind of stir up that conversation and invite people to be part of that process more directly, as at least 4 commissioners have indicated they're ready for this to move forward.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yeah.
If we're going to have a larger conversation about, and I think it's related to this, about the challenges of noise violations in our city, I would love to understand a little bit more about current state. How prevalent of a problem is it? Where is it happening in the city? Is it common to have repeat violators, or is it typically a one-off? In our 61st District Court liaison meeting, we have heard frustration about this topic, and so from our end, from the city's end, staff end, and so I'd be curious to understand a little bit more about the state. Is it a big challenge? How often does it happen? With whom? Where? I think that would help put this conversation into a little bit more context. That would be helpful for us.
Happy to have all of those conversations either offline with you individually if the rest of the commission wants. I mean, that's a big topic. City noise is something that I'd say our office has something in our inbox, maybe not weekly, but certainly monthly, whether it's industrial noise in certain places. We're building an amphitheater as a joint collaborative project downtown, which we've had conversations around noise. So I think that for this particular briefing, I'm inclined to stay focused and help the commission drive that forward or see what the political process is. And if you want to invite me and provide direction about a bigger conversation on noise, I'm happy to do that individually or otherwise.
I hear you on not wanting to get too out of scope for this conversation, but I do think knowing a little bit more about how much of a quote-unquote problem or how something like this happens, if this was in place in the last year, will we have a sense of how many people impacted? I think some context is helpful as opposed to kind of making a change and an ordinance change with real consequences in terms of civil infractions and fines without some of that. So I can understand why you want to keep it scoped, and so maybe it's not a full context. But I will say that this, to your point, this challenge of noise ordinance and violations does come up a lot. We've talked at community development about wanting to actually review what our nuisance codes are and even our process for how things get reported. It's a very complaint-based system. How fair is that? So I would ask that we all consider a more hefty and wholesome conversation about nuisance, and we might be able to start with noise because it is really relevant and it is repeated and recurring. And in the three years I've been here, we haven't had a holistic conversation about it.
And I think that's something that either we can talk about at either a retreat, we can talk about it as committee of the whole at some point. It's certainly possible that can be a public safety conversation. So those are all good thoughts. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, thank you, City Attorney, and that adjourns us. I'm sorry, we have closed session? We always seem to have closed session. Okay, sorry, missed my note on that. Okay, can I have a motion that we move into closed session?
So move.
Support.
And I do not see my note. What's the reason, City Attorney?
Pending litigation.
Okay, thank you. For purposes
Pending
of litigation, and Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Commissioner Belcheck?
Yes.
Commissioner Perdue?
Yes.
Commissioner Asasi? Yes. Commissioner Robbins?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgore?
Yes.
Mayor LaGrant?
Yes, and that's going to be in 601? Okay, thank you. That adjourns us. Bang.